Um, so I guess I'll kind of start off telling my story as far as how I got to creating my friggin' I don't even know how I'm gonna talk about it. It's still my name. Oh geez. Sips tea. We're bringing the tea today, literally. Welcome back to another video. Today, I have my lovely little sister, Andrea, and we are going to do another video. Today's topic is something that we've actually been wanting to talk about. It's something that I think goes along with the last video that we made regarding Andrea's experience and revelation that she had with teaching yoga and how she took a step back from it. And today we are talking about the step back that we have taken from our social media platforms, specifically for our fitness. So I guess this is a topic that I've really wanted to talk about. So I will start it off. For me, I started a fitness page back when I moved up to Traverse City. And really, I think a big reason why I did that, obviously, I really wanted to help motivate myself. I wanted it to be something that would hold me accountable. And I'd say within like the last year, probably, we both really, maybe the last 2 years, we've both really been taking a little look at those pages and feeling some convictions in them. And we wanted to make a video regarding like confidence and body image and self-idolatry and all of that. And so it felt like a really good next topic. So yeah, that is what we're talking about today. And I guess I can start it off because this is something that's really been weighing on me and has been pretty heavy on my heart. I created my fitness Instagram page probably a few years back. Are you laughing because of my Instagram page name, Friggin' Fit?
Yep.
Back then I thought it was super funny. And
Oh, it's still funny.
it's still catchy. I guess now what's actually really ironic and funny about it is the reason I named it Friggin' Fit is because I was like, I just want to be friggin' fit. Like I just want to get fit. And I've never been one who likes to swear. I'm not going to say I don't. I've never swore or like whatever, but I don't know. It was funny. It kind of stuck one day and I was just like friggin' fit. And so that's how that came about. And I have not changed the name on social media and I do still have it. But I don't know. I would say probably especially the last 2 years I've really just kind of stepped back and looked at it from a different lens, especially most recently. But yeah, I created that page really to help motivate myself. It was something that I knew would hold me accountable. And it was fun because I could post workouts on there and, the journey of like health and wellness. So it was fun to share like little tips and facts about like apple cider vinegar and all the like trendy things that people were trying. And don't get me wrong, I still like all of that stuff, but that's kind of what I was doing with it. I was really just like using it to engage people with fitness and health. And initially my intention of this page was really positive, and I quickly started to find my identity in my page. If I wasn't like posting enough, I was feeling like, oh man, I need to make another post. I need to engage my viewers. And all these different thoughts were coming in. And while that still was pretty innocent, then I as time went on, I started to realize I was really gaining a following of other fitness people. So then I was comparing my page and my image to other personal trainers. So their physical fitness levels and like what their bodies looked like. Like I wanted mine to look like this person's or that person's. And I don't think I realized in the moment like how unhealthy that was becoming. And then it seems like it took another jump up of like showing off my results. And that's where like the biggest conviction for me came in was, you know, it was really popular to like get the booty gains and have like the slim waist and like the curves. And me growing up, I was pretty a pretty big tomboy. I didn't have like all the curves, and so being able to like work out and achieve that body was a huge goal, because I was like, yeah, like I'm gonna be this curvy, friggin' fitness chick. And yeah, it just, looking back, I really strayed away from what my original intention was, and it really became about like my image. So that's my spiel on what I kind of how I got started with my page and where it ended up.
And I relate 100% to that. Making my identity in my page, and I'm sure this is relatable to you as well. When you are in that kind of industry, I'll call it, you see it's something that you can make a career out of, and it's also in the back of your mind, you're telling yourself how good it is for you, how good it is for others.
Yeah.
It's something that can potentially become a business, and with that, it's so easy to make that your entire identity. And when I was super into posting for my page, it was something where I would I would do the yoga, or I would go travel just to get the photo because I wanted to show it off.
Yeah.
And at the time, I'm like, well, everyone does that. That's what this is, social media is for. And now that I look back, I'm like, wow, that was like vain and time wasting. I
Sure.
could have been doing so many other things, but I was so focused on getting a picture that I thought would draw people into my page, and it was no longer just about potentially getting people into my classes to help them, but it was also just the whole popularity contest, and the focus definitely shifted to things that were not so important
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. I can totally relate to that. And I mean, it's so easy for that to happen. And, I actually heard this one lady was talking about social media and how, I think her title of her video was like, How Social Media Ruined My Life. And it was really funny because she was talking about how, she would go on these like trips for her job, and she hated them. Like it was so much work. It was so like daunting work, though, not like she just didn't want to do her job, but it was like the things she was doing, she wasn't having fun and enjoying it, but yet she was posting these amazing posts like, look at my life, it's so awesome.
Yeah.
And she was like, and I'd post like my picture, and then I'd scroll through the feed, and there'd be like a woman with like like holding on to like a million balloons with like an eagle flying in the background, and it was like with like a mountain peak, and she was like, it's just like, what, how do you compete with that? And it's so true, like you find yourself almost like spinning your wheels trying to like, what's the next big attention grabbing thing I can do?
Yeah.
No,
And with
so unhealthy.
that being said, I think a lot of women in particular then think our bodies and the way that they look and showing them off, that's the attention grabber. That
Yep.
is something I would love to talk about with you.
Yeah. That's a perfect segment because yeah, that's where I found myself. Like I said, I was, striving for that awesome butt. Like, that was the thing, like to have a good butt. I mean, just being honest. And to the point where like when I last went through my photos, I mean, there's still some that I'm not going to lie, like God's still working on me. Like I'm still a work in progress. Like I haven't completely, I'll admit, I don't feel like I've completely died to self. Um, when we talk about like dying to self, that sounds so intense. And for people who are watching and have no idea what that means, basically, it's to stop idolizing who you are, especially like your flesh, how you look, um, all these really like vain qualities and traits that you possess. It's just putting those aside and just living for God and trying to be more in his image. And obviously going on Instagram and showing my butt is not something very godly. And I went through and I was just like cringing, like, no, no, like getting rid of things because I'm like, oh my gosh, like it almost made me sad that I felt like, well, for one, that I was so easily swayed by society. Like that's another thing that I really want to touch on is like society is all about this pressure and this unrealistic image of what we should look like as women. And I think it's just really easy to get caught up in that and think like, oh, so and so posted this or that, especially like celebrities nowadays. It's like they're all half naked on the internet. And, I can probably count a majority of people that I know and that I follow or am friends with are approving of this by liking these pictures and things. And that's no judgment or condemnation on them because obviously I once was there too. But because I stepped back and I see it so differently, I'm like, whoa, I was so just like going with the times.
Yeah. And sorry, did you have something?
Well, I was just going to say, and like compromising like my values and not valuing myself by putting my body out there like that. Or now my husband.
Right. And to piggyback off of that, what you just said, I've went back with the lens of looking at my photos in the mindset of, and this is something that you shared with me through another like Christian YouTuber, of what would that woman of God, her husband, see when he looks at me? And do I want to compromise my relationship with my friend or even like their relationship? Do I want to put that burden on another couple because I want to feel good about myself? I want people to acknowledge that
For a
I'm
moment.
attractive. Yeah.
For a moment too, like how stupid.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I remember that post and I think about that actually quite a bit. Even to the point of like being at church and being out around people like, I mean, okay, there's certain things we can't hide. We have bodies and sometimes, I'm not wearing a turtleneck every day. And there's times that I'm like finding myself like trying to cover myself up because I'm like, oh my gosh, like in the past, like I would be like revealing for a reason. Like I'd want to show off my body. I just think it's so crazy how now, like looking at things so differently, I'm like, wow, in the Bible, it talks about lust and all of these things that are sinful. And yeah, like I don't want somebody to be lusting over me. And I don't want, my husband to have to worry about somebody lusting over me. And
Especially
yeah.
I've experienced on my social media, straight up creeps just following me to get an insight of on my body and then messaging me weird things. And I've watched enough crime TV to,
You've lived a crime
yeah,
television episode.
yeah, that I'm like, that's not worth some weirdo having access to the image of me. It's just not
Yeah.
worth it. And I want to state, our convictions and the whole like renewing of our mind and the like veil being lifted is because God revealed this to us. At the time, we probably didn't even realize how damaging it was, or in some cases we thought, oh, we're celebrating ourselves and that's what people
Yeah.
should do. We need to love our bodies and show
Yourself.
them off, and they're natural and beautiful.
God
And
made these bodies.
yeah, a lot of people will praise that, and but if they don't have the heart of God, they could see if you are stepping away from that life and you're, making a stance that you don't think that it's a healthy thing to do, then instead of like the secular world can condemn someone for not being so overtly sexual, and they're like, well, there's something wrong with you because you want to, you must hate yourself, you must not be comfortable, when actually in reality I think this is the most comfortable I've ever been with my body, and like the most I've valued and put love and worth to myself. And that's because it has nothing to do with my body. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I look back and I was like, oh, I was so confident and I felt so good about myself. But I mean, to be completely like transparent and honest, there were a lot of things during like certain years of my life where, and I know I've kind of shared some of this before, like with wanting the attention of guys, like, being dumped or rejected by a guy and like feeling like, oh, he didn't want me because I must not like look good enough. But in reality, it's like, no, he didn't want you because you were a hot mess. Like, like let's keep it real. Like you were not the type of partner, or you were just not in a good place. You were not ready, nor on the flip side, was he ready or was he the partner for you? And
Mm-hmm.
yet I look back and I was constantly like wanting to look like this, or thinking like, well, if I, was, you know, attracting him with my sexuality, then I could get him back. That is a Jezebel spirit. And we talked about this on the phone, but nothing good about that.
Yep.
So I don't know. I just think it's so refreshing to look back and see things so much more clear,
Yeah.
because I was very confused.
Right. I went through the same thing with, now I can accept or acknowledge that I totally was operating in a spirit outside of God, thinking that I would just use my sexuality and physical self to manipulate and control my relationships around me. And now that I see that clearly, it's like, whoa, like I'm
Look out.
like, yeah, anyone can be fall kind of victim to that. And I think for myself, one of my actions that I was partaking in at that time was, there was a period of time where I wanted to be with someone that I wasn't with. And so I was obsessed with being on social media and posting things, knowing that they're going to see it and maybe like,
Yeah.
finally do it. They'll finally be like, wow, like she looks great. Or like, I want to,
I need
see
to call her.
her. And it was just a constant battle of being like, oh, well, that didn't work, better do it again. And then
Yeah.
have one person in mind, and I'm devoting all my time and flesh to them. But again, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, but yet there in that crowd, but yeah, that one person might see it. They're obviously probably at that point weren't interested. And so then I'm just giving all these freebies out to, like, 500 other people.
Yeah. And then nobody's going to want to be with you if they're like,
Yeah.
you
I'm
shoot
not
yourself in the foot.
the one person that I wanted to actually be with, and to actually, you know,
Yeah.
for that one person to see me. Instead, it's just like a ton of people, and you get diluted, like, by doing that. It's like spreading
That's
yourself
such a good point.
across the,
That was so good. I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, it's so true. You're doing all of this for one person, and really, you're just attracting people that aren't good for you in the meantime. All of these guys who are looking at you for just one thing. And that's another topic that we were going to talk about is, if you feel like you have to even do that to get his attention, what does that say about him? Like, is that really the kind of guy that you want to attract? Somebody who is like only gonna want to call you and reach out to you because you looked super hot on Instagram? Like, no, like, you don't.
yeah.
It's not good all around.
On the topic of attracting a shallow man, I have been on that receiving end, and to humble myself, I will say, as we're speaking of, I was just as vain. So, of course, my mindset was not thinking of what can I do to attract him to me for my heart and soul. And I was in a relationship that I invested money I didn't have, putting them on credit cards, not worth it, to appease his preferences. Fake lashes, fake nails. I got contacts just to be able to go out to an event with him and feel like this somehow makes me better than I was before. This is going to seal the deal that our relationship is, on the right path. And instead, I'm thinking of a very specific trip we went on, and I pulled out all the stops, again, spending money I didn't have to try and look a certain way that was feeding into vanity. And at the end of it, that trip, there was a handful of other beautiful women around us that I'm like, the computer pause.
Hello, did you freeze? Is this thing on?
There was, a handful of beautiful women around me, and the fake lashes and contacts and nails didn't set me apart from them. That's not what was going to keep our relationship thriving. And ultimately, it didn't work out, I think, because we were on a different path where, some people are going to continue down the path towards like status and image. And at that point was when I was just coming out of that and was trying to find answers outside of this body, knowing that this body ultimately dies, and the only thing I have to take with me throughout the rest of my life or eternity is just the soul and not this flesh.
Yeah, your old flesh suit. Yeah, I can totally relate to that too. There were times when I felt like I wanted to get like lip injections one day, or maybe I'll get a nose job. Like, I was for sure like that was going to happen. I just wanted to change all these things about myself. And I I realized, and to be honest, if I was really being like honest with myself then, I knew that those weren't the things that I needed to change about me to keep somebody. Like that wasn't it. And it wasn't until I actually dealt with whatever stuff was going on inside with me, like personal things, that I felt like free from all of that. And yeah, so that's kind of, there was one point when I was very into my friggin' fit page where I started to get really outspoken about like politics and things like that. And um I believe part of that was because I was on this, spiritual journey where I was really looking at the Bible and looking at just the world and things in the world that were happening and that I didn't agree with and that I didn't like, they weren't sitting right with me. So I was being outspoken about them. And one of these topics really caused a lot of backlash for me where I had people I loved like really coming for me, like hardcore on my post in front of everybody, calling me out for exposing my body. And, you know, one thing that um, was said was something about like my son. What would my son think looking at my page one day? And even then, I kind of took it with a grain of salt because I was like, you know what? I'm like, this is my life and my page, and nobody's going to try and shame me publicly. And I was at that time, like I said, I felt fairly confident. Like I felt like really strong in my sense of self. Um, Even though like in hindsight, obviously, like if I was confident, I wouldn't be needing to post these things. But I was able to really handle that criticism pretty well. And but I always kind of like tucked it in my pocket. It was like, like I'll forgive you for what you did and what you said, but I'm not going to forget, I'm going to kind of hang on to that, digest that a little bit. And it's so funny because now I look back and as like hurt as I was and, as wrong as I felt like it was the way they kind of came at me, in hindsight, like looking back, I think it's really kind of ironic that, you know, and there's no like negativity there now about what happened and about what was said. Like I'm totally okay with it and I'm forgiving. And, you know, if I offended somebody that day and they felt like I really deserved to get that like lashing, um, I'm okay with that. And I apologize if I offended somebody that day. But looking back, I was so shamed. And yet these same people still, will like celebrities or other people who are all about showing their body. And
Mhm.
I think there's such like a double standard there because now I've been able to take a step back and see it for what it is, and I actually like agree with them now. Like I'm like, you're right. I I don't need to put my butt on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. I don't think I ever put my butt on Facebook, but definitely Instagram. And I didn't need to do that. And now that I'm not doing it, I don't expect them to like applaud me for that or anything, but I do find it ironic that, you know, I don't know.
Oh,
It's a
I know.
it's a tough one. That's a tough one, but
It is. And it honestly is something that I would say strengthens my walk with God to see that, because it just proves to me that God is so true in saying that those who don't have the heart for him are not, like, don't be surprised when they don't have the heart for you. And so it would be nice for people to acknowledge the growth and maturity, I guess, that has happened in this span of time for myself. I think it was, yeah, last spring that I personally started reevaluating my social media. But I don't expect those people that loved when I post very vain selfies and was all about look at my body and what it can do. Those people that would applaud me for that, I don't expect them to understand, or to, I guess, not understand, but to applaud where I am now. But it sure would be nice.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just kind of I don't want to say like it's lonely, but it can be a lonely feeling to make changes like this. And you are a little bit set apart in that regard just because you have a different view now. And I don't know if you mentioned this or not yet, but you said unless somebody understands your why, then they really like won't understand your walk with God, like your relationship with Jesus. They don't get it because they don't really know your story.
Right. Yeah, I think that that has been a really powerful kind of statement lately that I've reflected on. It's so important to find understanding, and when you know the why and you have that understanding, that gives you the ability to digest it and internalize it and let it reflect out in a loving, like respectful manner of understanding that it is because God's heart is imparted, to us.
We're back
And
with a guest.
guest of honor.
Somebody woke up.
Hi. So my why behind deleting or archiving a lot of my posts that I felt unsure about or I felt strong conviction about, and also myself, it was December 27th, so over a month, 2 months now, actually, today. I have not been on Instagram. I deleted the app. I didn't delete my page, but I did delete the app, so I couldn't go on there. I think some practical advice for people that are wanting to kind of make a similar reflection on their social media is to actually take the time to step away from it. So for myself, it was deleting the app and taking a couple months where I couldn't even, go on there, not even to scroll. And I think that it sounds kind of challenging for some people, like, oh, I don't want to delete my social media. You don't have to delete your profile, but if you could even just make a week-long thing where you're like going to take the app off of your phone, it gives you so much room. And when you have that space, you can actually reflect on it with a renewed vision. And I think that to refocus and set the new intention, especially if you're wanting to own it with your new fresh mindset, you do need time away from it, and to take a step back from that being your focus, and you can come back and rebrand from there. But I just wanted to advise that leaving social media is a very helpful thing to do when you're trying to figure out who exactly you want to project an image of to the world.
Yeah. Um, I know that there's so much negativity that comes with social media, but it's pretty sad because there really is so much inspiring content and so many motivating people out there. I think you really have to develop like a good balance of time spent on social media, and you also have to develop like a strength. So again, it's being honest with yourself and saying like, okay, I'm finding myself spiraling into like comparing myself or, you know, being jealous that I don't have this, and I'm just using examples, like this body or this house or this new pair of shoes, whatever it is. Just making sure you're aware that you're feeling that way and then addressing it, because so many people, I think, deal with this and they either don't realize it or they don't want to admit it. Because I know for me, for so long, like I felt like, well, if people know I'm not confident, like what the heck, people like a confident person. Guys like a confident woman. No guy wants a woman who's like, oh, I'm not pretty, I'm not this, I'm not that. And so confidence is a very attractive thing. I think a major thing that I also realized looking back in hindsight is that I didn't have like full forgiveness for things that had happened in my life, whether it be with like an ex or like somebody who made me feel insecure by maybe something they said, or, I like hung on to those things. And I realized that I didn't have true forgiveness because I was still looking back and feeling like I had to prove something. And it wasn't until I realized that when you are holding on to something and you haven't fully forgiven it, that really will pour over into your confidence and your self-worth and all of these other things, all these other areas that you don't even realize. And so when you've truly forgiven somebody, you're not trying to like seek revenge. You're not trying to make someone else feel bad about themselves. That is not godly behavior. That's not behavior that I want to portray. And, I really don't want people to feel bad, which was another reason why I had to take a look at my social media and realize, like, am I feeding into this whole body image where I'm portraying something that other people feel like they can't achieve? And so that kind of goes hand in hand with forgiveness. And if you're holding on to things that may be causing you to feel like you have to strive. I like how I have some notes, but I like how Anointed with Fire says that Anointed Fire is a YouTube channel that Andrea put me on to. But she said that our goal as Christians should be to deliver people struggling with forgiveness. So that means that, we shouldn't be sowing seeds of anything negative towards any other person, because anything that you sow will come back to you. You always will reap what you sow. And she said something that I thought was so true. It's like when you've truly forgiven somebody, like God knows your heart and he knows your intention. And so if you're hanging on to something and you realize like your feelings are still there about it, then you can ask God to, take those feelings from you and like help you to forgive and move on from it. But a lot of people think that forgiveness is a feeling. And forgiveness isn't a feeling, because you can forgive somebody and still feel hurt by them or what they did. You still might have days where you're sad about something that happened, but that's when you really go to God and say, God, I've given this to you because I forgive this person, and I really want you to just deliver me from these feelings. And I just thought that was really cool that she made that tie of like, forgiveness isn't a feeling. Like, it doesn't always make sense to forgive somebody. Somebody might have really hurt you and you might think, I don't have to forgive that person. But you do. Like, it's that cliche saying of forgiveness isn't just for the other person, but it's for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is powerful. Forgiveness is truly the core and heart behind the Gospels, which makes sense bringing it into our own self-worth and how we are going to view what makes our worth, forgiveness towards others for what they may have affected our own perception of our beauty is so important, but also forgiving ourselves for falling into those traps, for playing into vanity, for being that person that might actually unintentionally have hurt another by being something that they perceived as more attractive than themselves.
Yeah.
I just think that forgiveness is more than it is not a feeling. It is
It's an actual way of being.
Of living life, and it should be granted to everyone, and that's why God brought grace to the world, is so that we could all be forgiven, and in that forgiveness find validity in our true selves.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good, because like in the Bible, when it says that Jesus said that we need to forgive 70 times 7, like over and over and over again. I mean, basically, we should be constantly forgiving. We have to kind of become forgiveness in order to lead a life that's going to just be prosperous. And baby. Another thing I kind of jotted down was that unforgiveness keeps you in shackles. So really, if you have unforgiveness, you're kind of like a slave to those feelings that come with it. So what you in turn end up doing is really keeping yourself from receiving the blessings that God has for you, as well as tapping into the person that God has called you to be. So if you're kind of stuck in this cycle of, holding on to these feelings and emotions that come with not truly forgiving somebody, God's not going to be ready to grant you something you've been wanting. Like, for example, again, Anointed Fire, her channel, this was awesome, but she was talking about how, for example, let's say you have a business and you've been praying to God, like, God, just please let my business thrive and, open these doors for me. So then God opens these doors for you to where you're so overwhelmed, you're very busy. People are constantly like needing your attention, and you're kind of wearing yourself thin trying to run this business. And so then you start getting criticized, like, oh, well, you don't care because you haven't responded to my email, or, this wasn't done like in the quality that it should have been done, but it's because you have so many things going on. And it's like, unless you're in a place where God can use you and allow you to work through all of that criticism, like, you're going to fail and you're not going to do good. You're not going to be able to handle all the stress that comes with your business. So kind of in that same aspect, like, you can't like level up unless you're operating from a place of forgiveness, because people are going to hurt you in every area of life, whether it be work or family or friends or people you love.
One note that I had jotted down also from listening to Anointed Fire that I think is just
Fire.
I really
Jake
said we should talk about prayer, which actually I
if
did.
You think about it, Jesus says this is how you should pray: "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven."
Come on, fire.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we can forgive those that trespass against us.
Yeah. You about to try and make a cameo?
So like that is like how Jesus told us that we are supposed to pray to the Lord. And
Yeah.
he's right there talking about you have to be able to forgive yourself so that you can forgive others while you're talking to the Father.
That's so true. And Anointed Fire, Tiffany, she was talking about that. It's like prayer is so important. And when you forgive somebody, like praying for that person and praying like and doing good for that person, like trying to bless that person. But yeah, I'm just going to keep his clip in there.
I think that it has been a big lesson for me is the golden rule of treating others how you want to be treated. Through forgiveness, I've been able to turn around and instead of praying to God about just delivering me from my enemies, I can now go to God and say, God bless them, God.
Yeah, and mean it.
Yeah, I mean it.
God knows your heart, so yeah.
Just the beauty in them finding God and then becoming a more godly person. Like just that thought is so beautiful, and I pray that God would do that for others.
Yeah.
That at one point when your heart's hardened towards them, you're not so much praying for blessings upon them, but in the big picture, the greatest thing that you could pray for them is like not even just your protection from them, but is just that they find God and that they are blessed by God, because if they can find that understanding that you have, that they can relate to you and they can see things through your lens that God has given us, it is what's going to bring peace among us all. And that peace between us is the peace within our own souls for ourselves.
That's reminding me of like to when you're like looking at a situation through a lens of God and through how Jesus would want you to, sometimes God will show you a perspective that you never thought about. So you might, in the past you might look at the way somebody treats you and like maybe is making fun of you or this or that. But when you take it to God and instead of acting on impulse and like getting mad at that person and like taking it personally, God might reveal to you like their heart and be like, hey, that person said this or did this, but this is why. And kind of like soften your heart to see maybe where they're coming from, or you just get a different perspective. And it's almost like when you're mad and you're like, I want to spill all my guts on Facebook, and you're like typing up this thing and then you get it all out and then God's like, okay, no, like we're not gonna you can share that with me, but you don't have to say that. But it's kind of like that where God's like, yeah, I know you're upset, but then you get to like have that reflection first before you do anything, before you make any decisions, before you say anything out of anger. Like you can reflect on it and be like, oh, that makes sense. And I think with forgiveness, a lot of times, we talked about this today, where you want to forgive somebody, but you feel like you don't have closure on the situation, or you like don't understand it. And so I was telling you how it's like in the past with a particular ex, I was like constantly calling and like needing to like go to his house and like, I need closure. Like, tell me, like, why don't you love me? Like, why won't this work? And now, years later, I totally understand. And I really wanted closure. And I thought that that was what was going to help me forgive this person and move on. But that wasn't it. Like, I should have just forgiven and moved on right then and there. But I was grasping for an understanding that sometimes you don't get right away. And now I look back and I can actually take responsibility for my side of it and like why it didn't work out. And obviously God had so many other things in store for me, but then it was like my world was over. I like needed to know why.
And that is so clear to us now that those relationships were idolatry, and in those moments where you run to another person for your validation, whether it's online or in a personal relationship, many times it doesn't work out for you, because God is like, you should be coming to me. Like,
Yeah,
you would
exactly.
you'd get your peace. Come to me for those things.
I'm true love.
And instead, we went through so many times seeking other things for that. And I think that's why it was so important for us to speak about this,
Yeah.
because I'm sure most people out there fall into that, going elsewhere than straight to God.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of sad to me because I know that there's a lot of people that I love and know and see out there that don't have like that hindsight yet, or they haven't been able to really step back and see it yet. And so sometimes you really need like almost like a tough love person in your life to be honest with you. And I'll admit, like, I think I had some friends along the way try to tell me, but I wasn't I wasn't hearing from God. And that's what I really needed. I didn't have a real spiritual person to turn to. And a lot of times when we're in these cycles, we're going to a friend who's gonna validate us and be like, yeah, he's the worst. Like, you deserve this, you deserve that. Yeah, you should go drive to his house right now and demand an answer. Like, that's not good. That's not what you need. And so I just think it's important to kind of be honest with yourself and ask yourself, like, do I have a friend who can give me like a godly biblical perspective on my situation? And now I'm so blessed and I'm so thankful because I have you, but I have friends in my church now who, if I were to ever have a problem with, like Jake, for example, if we were to ever have a disagreement about something, like, I know I could go to that person and tell them what my situation is, and they're not going to be like, you should just stay here tonight. Like, forget him, he's this, he's that. No, they're going to help like intercede for my marriage, and they're going to give me like wisdom, not feelings. And that's been such a like game changer for my relationship to have that. But even when it comes to like family relationships, like, we all know that sometimes those can be unhealthy too, and like things can happen in families where it's really hard to deal with, and sometimes you need a different perspective than somebody who's just gonna come at you with their feelings.
Definitely. I would implore anyone who doesn't have like a church family or is new in their walk to find sound Christians on the internet that they can gain information from and wisdom from. Yeah,
Seriously
because
though, like, I would love to be there for people who have questions or want advice, because I I think that would have saved me so many bad experiences that happened. I mean, I now look back and I'm like, God put me through the fire, but he was refining me and making me better and stronger. And like I said, I know that he knew what his plan was for me, and it actually is just like so beautiful to look back on, because I see all those times where I remember times where I cried out to God, like, give me a sign, God, like, if this isn't the person for me, or if I shouldn't be doing this or that. And I I was so wanting to do things my way that even when the sign was like flashing in my face and as clear as day, I was just living by my own flesh. So that's where dying to self comes from.
yes, and dying to the opinion of man, because going to people who are just in the world and looking at everything in a secular worldview they're not thinking of dying to flesh to feed the soul. And so that is why it is important to be in communion with other Christians that can help you reset the focus of taking the attention off of the feelings, the body, everything that is this vessel,
yeah,
physical, and redirecting you back to God, because it's not the opinion of man at the end of the day that is going to change us, that is going to help us, that is going to grow us. It's always the truth of God that is going to refine us into a more well-rounded, more secure being.
Yeah, I agree. I think that without making this like a 2-hour video, because I could talk forever about like forgiveness and like confidence and image and all of that, but maybe we'll just have to do another video. So I don't know if you would like, maybe we could just do a little closeout prayer for anybody who might be watching. Yeah. Okay. I'll just start it off, and then if you want to finish it up. Okay. All right. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity and the technology to be able to meet this way and hopefully reach others with this message. I just pray that it really resonates with people out there who might be listening. I just pray that you come into their heart and just help them to forgive, help them to understand that the feelings are messy. Sometimes it doesn't quite make sense why we should be forgiving. But God, I just ask that you just help open their eyes to see how forgiveness is so important to their well-being and to just furthering your kingdom. And God, I just thank you so much for my sister and for my church family and for all of those who just speak life into me. And I just pray that this is a blessing to others. Passing the baton.
God, I also thank you for my lovely sister Angela and for allowing me to have an advisor and friend in this journey. I pray encouragement over anyone watching this who feels like their journey has been shaky, or they maybe have yet to embrace reflecting on their own personal image and their own insecurities. I would pray encouragement into their spirit that they should feel excited to take that step further to deeper their relationship with God and find self-growth and self-love through God. Because beauty is only an opinion, and the only truth that there is that we can truly rely on is God himself. So I thank you, Heavenly Father, and I pray a blessing among us all here. Amen.
Amen. Well, that was awesome. Thanks for talking as always. And that's the tea for tonight. Cheers. I love you, and talk to you later.
I definitely just spilled water all down myself, so hopefully the camera didn't catch that.